And then the whole backside, you know, is out.
These are the elements that turned a small-budget Canadian hockey romance into one of the most talked-about television shows at the end of last year.
What the? I'm coming to the cottage.
Heated Rivalry defied every expectation to become a global streaming phenomenon, and the story of how it happened reveals something fascinating about modern entertainment. Let's start with what this show actually is.
I'm not just a pretty face. Oh, but you're a very pretty face. You can't tell if anyone finds out that...
Heated Rivalry is a 6-episode limited series based on Rachel Reed's Game Changers novel series, specifically the second book called Heated Rivalry. The story follows 2 professional hockey players, Canadian Shane Hollander, played by Hudson Williams, and Russian Ilya Rozanov, played by Connor Story, who are fierce rivals on the ice as captains of competing teams, but off the ice have been carrying on a secret romance for 8 years.
Why the fuck did you think it was okay to sex me before the game? What the fuck?
You were hard, weren't you?
Jacob Tierney created, wrote, and directed the entire thing. Tierney's a Canadian filmmaker who previously worked on the cult comedy series Letterkenny and its spin-off Shoresy, winning 9 Canadian Screen Awards for Letterkenny along the way. So he wasn't exactly unknown, but this project represented something completely different for him.
Ilya, I'm gay.
You're not so gay you can't fuck Rose Landry.
Oh my god.
I'm just a bellboy kid.
Now here's where things get interesting. Under $5 million, that's what this show cost to make. Filming happened in just over a month, shooting across Ontario and Quebec with all the hockey scenes at the Sleeman Centre in Guelph and various locations around Hamilton and Toronto filling in for everything else. Small production, tight timeline, originally planned to premiere in early the following year. But something unexpected started happening even before the show aired.
Did either of you read the book when you auditioned for this?
No, we didn't even know about hockey, smut, and romantic.
The Game Changers books have a dedicated fan base, primarily composed of women active on BookTok. That's the book-loving community within TikTok. These readers are passionate, organized, and extremely online. When Bell Media, the Canadian company producing the show for their streaming service Crave, started announcing casting decisions, the reaction came immediately and intensely.
These freaks outside.
Hudson Williams and Connor Story were cast as the leads, both relatively unknown actors. Williams is Canadian and had been active on BookTok himself, sharing book recommendations. Story is from Texas, and his previous biggest role was a scene in Joker Folie à Deux with Joaquin Phoenix. Neither were household names. But when the show released its trailer, something clicked. That 90-second trailer spawned an impressive amount of TikTok fan edits almost immediately, and keep in mind this is before the show even aired.
Do you want to come to my game tonight?
Oh, wow.
I have 2 seats.
Fans were creating content based purely on trailer footage, setting clips to songs by Olivia Rodrigo, Tate McRae, Sabrina Carpenter, and the buzz was building entirely organically. Justin Stockman, the vice president of content for Bell Media, noticed this early momentum. At every step of the way, when we released the trailer and as we had a pretty clever social media strategy around drip-feeding the fan base, the reaction kept being stronger and stronger, he told reporters. That drip-feeding strategy is worth examining.
And it felt like we were something.
We can't be something, Hollander.
Bell Media launched an internal book club around the Game Changers series where their marketing team actually read the books to understand what the existing fandom cared about. They created social media content with Easter eggs and behind-the-scenes exclusives designed to generate viral moments, sent merchandise to key BookTok influencers, and added the Crave logo to printed copies of the book in select retail stores. This wasn't just throwing money at advertising. What we're looking at here is strategic engagement with a community that already existed and already cared deeply about these characters.
Everyone has been so receptive and so nice and really good, you know, because it could get nasty pretty quick.
As the premiere date approached, Bell Media made a decision that would change everything. Originally scheduled for early the following year, maybe February, then January, then around Christmas, the show kept getting moved up because as they kept seeing the finished episodes, they realized they had something special. The holidays are a high viewing period for streaming services when people are home and there's less new content on traditional television, so they moved the premiere up to late November. Executive producer Brendan Brady, who co-founded the production company Accent Aigu Entertainment with Tierney, said they were essentially racing to meet the new deadline. I think we were looking at February, and then it was maybe January, then Christmas, and then November, Brady recalled.
You like tuna melt?
You want to make me a tuna melt?
I was gonna make one for me, I can make two.
Meanwhile, international distributors were paying attention. Sphere Abacus, Bell Media's distribution arm, had been preparing to shop the show at the Cannes-based MIPCOM TV market, but with the premiere date suddenly moved up to November, they had a very tight window to secure international deals. And that's when the story takes a dramatic turn. Just 9 days before the show was set to premiere, HBO Max announced they had acquired the rights for the United States and Australia. This wasn't planned months in advance. This was a last-minute deal driven by one thing: social media buzz. Casey Bloys, the content chairman and CEO of HBO Max, got a call from Jason Butler, an executive on his team who handles worldwide program planning. Butler had just acquired the show for HBO Max Australia and asked if Bloys wanted to look at it for the US market.
And I will say that Heated Rivalry has already been picked up for season 2. Come on now.
Bloys watched the episodes on a Friday, and by Monday they were negotiating. It was an easy and very quick yes, he later said. Obviously, I'm a gay man, so I had a sense that it might make some waves. I thought it was very well done, and to tell you the truth, I was surprised that it was even available, because this was about 3 weeks before it aired.
So this is basically 90% of where I was filming, but it's like
The acquisition was attributed in part to the online campaigning from the Game Changers fan base. These readers, who had been creating fan edits and generating buzz for months, had essentially demonstrated to HBO Max that there was an audience waiting for this show. So Heated Rivalry premiered with a 2-episode launch on both Crave in Canada and HBO Max in the United States and Australia. Deals came together with Neon in New Zealand and Movistar Plus in Spain, with the UK following shortly after through Sky, which won what was described as a major bidding war. Now we need to talk about what actually made the show good, because viral marketing only gets you so far, and you need substance to maintain momentum.
I love you.
I love it.
Critical reception was overwhelmingly positive. Rotten Tomatoes shows a 98% approval rating based on 62 critics' reviews, with a consensus that reads, Jacob Tierney lovingly adapts Rachel Reed's hockey set romance novels into an all-consuming, steamy, dreamy love fest of true queer intent, making Heated Rivalry a bona fide winner. Metacritic assigned it a score of 71 out of 100, indicating generally favorable reviews.
What the fuck was that?
A loon?
But the real praise focused on two things: the lead actors' performances and their chemistry. Rachel Kurzius from The Washington Post wrote, "Their faces capture a complex cocktail of feelings. Their chemistry is bonkers, and story pulls off an impressive Russian accent."
Are you Russian though?
I'm not, no.
What?
Yeah.
You like look Russian.
Yeah, that's what that says. That's
Remember, Story is from Texas, but he studied Russian specifically for this role and developed a Russian accent for his English dialogue. The Seattle Times praised Story's Rozanoff as a pool of nuance, deeply vulnerable one moment and obnoxiously charming the next, noting that you would never know Story was born in Texas instead of Russia. His accent is that good.
I don't give a fuck how I played 2 fucking nights ago. I don't need to think about that. That was yesterday. That was before.
Tierney himself admitted that the casting came down to chemistry. Chemistry reads were held, and the reaction was unanimous. As Tierney put it, they all said the same thing immediately, and he knew from that moment they had found their Shane and Ilya. The show doesn't shy away from depicting the intimate relationship between the two characters in ways that mainstream television typically doesn't with queer relationships.
How about you tell me everything that's on your mind, but in Russian?
Tierney initially doubted whether the adaptation was even possible while retaining the book's content, noting that while queer romances like Heartstopper had risen in popularity, the thing that is so fundamentally different in Heated Rivalry is intimacy. It's character development. It's not just a random scene in every episode, he continued. They learn about each other, and they learn about themselves through this.
Come here.
No, you come here.
No, you come here.
No, you come here.
Intimacy coordinator Chala Hunter oversaw the scenes and allowed what she described as artistic interpretation within heavily choreographed sequences. The absence of frontal nudity was a decision made entirely by Tierney. These production details might seem minor, but they speak to the commitment the actors and crew brought to making the scenes feel authentic rather than performative. 1 episode per week following the initial 2-episode premiere, that's how the show released, and each week the momentum grew. Just Watch ranked Heated Rivalry 4th on its television streaming chart during 1 week in December. Whip Media, based on data from its TV Time platform tracking over 25 million users, reported the series placed 6th during 2 consecutive weeks in December. In Canada, the show became Crave's most-watched original series ever, with viewership jumping 400% during the series' run. The United States saw it become the top-rated non-animated acquired series on HBO Max since the platform launched, and it ranked in the top 5 among all scripted debuts on HBO Max that year. Then came Episode 5, I'll Believe in Anything. The episode's title received what can only be described as unprecedented audience acclaim, a perfect 10 out of 10 rating on IMDb, tying with Breaking Bad's legendary episode Ozymandias as one of the only television episodes to ever receive a perfect rating on the platform. Critics gave it perfect scores as well. Tom Smith of Vulture and Mads Mikkelsen of Telltale TV both gave it 5 stars, while Cody Schultz of Show Snob described it as a masterclass in storytelling. Following this episode's reception, the series itself entered IMDb's Top 250 TV Shows chart, with the overall series currently holding a 9.2 rating on IMDb. But here's the thing, the most telling indicator of the show's impact wasn't coming from critics or streaming charts, it was coming from social media. The fan edit phenomenon exploded in ways that few shows have experienced. Thousands of videos on TikTok combined clips from the show with carefully selected music, and these edits fell into 2 main categories. Edits focused on the romantic moments between Shane and Ilya, and edits that zeroed in on the emotional pain of 2 closeted men unable to fully acknowledge their love for each other. One particularly viral edit set to Eurythmics' Sweet Dreams accumulated over 380,000 likes. When one episode featured a club sequence soundtracked by TATU's song All the Things She Said, the song actually charted in the top 10 on US music charts, a song from the early 2000s experiencing a resurgence because of a TV show. The official Heated Rivalry TikTok account amassed 1 million followers and over 41 million likes, and the account even started making its own fan edits, leaning into the community rather than maintaining corporate distance. Both Hudson Williams and Connor Story saw their Instagram followings explode. Williams had anticipated around 100,000 followers by mid-production, but both actors ended up with over 1 million followers each, becoming, as media outlets described them, the internet's boyfriends. The press tour for the show became an event in itself. Williams joked about being uncoachable regarding media training, and both actors approached interviews with what observers called endearing chaos. The Hollywood Reporter noted that their press tour was as joy-filled as the project it's publicizing, with both actors displaying crackling chemistry off-screen. Major platforms featured them, The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon, The Today Show, CNN, and they secured features in GQ Hype, Vanity Fair, The New York Times, Vulture, Cosmopolitan, and Entertainment Weekly before being announced as presenters at the Golden Globes. But the media attention brought scrutiny as well. Neither Williams nor Story has publicly disclosed their personal lives, which led to speculation and in some cases criticism. Jordan Firstman, star of the HBO series I Love LA, criticized the show and actors in an interview with Vulture and faced severe backlash from the Heated Rivalry fanbase before later walking back his comments. Jacob Tierney defended his actors. "I don't think there's any reason to get into that stuff," he stated. "You can't ask questions like that when you're casting, right? It's actually against the law, so what you have to gauge is somebody's enthusiasm and willingness to do the work." Connor Story addressed the issue directly, saying, "I feel honored to be able to bring someone to life that so many people feel seen, understood, and represented by, and I think that transcends whoever I'm sleeping with in my real life." This touches on something about why the show resonated. Heated Rivalry centers a queer romance in a space, professional sports, where such stories are virtually non-existent in real life. No openly gay male player has ever competed in NHL history, and the sport has a documented problem with homophobia. Rachel Reed, the author of the original books, spoke about this directly. Game Changer came from a place of me being angry at hockey culture, and how clearly homophobic it was and is, and all the other things that made me really ashamed to be a hockey fan, she said. The books and subsequently the show were deliberately created as a challenge to that culture. Reed drew inspiration from the real-life rivalry between Sidney Crosby and Alexander Ovechkin, 2 hockey legends who entered the NHL in the mid-2000s and are still playing 20 years later. But she asked a provocative question: what if 2 rivals like that were also in love? Tierney's stated goal for the show was to provide what he called horny joy, a phrase that perfectly encapsulates the show's refusal to make queerness tragic or secondary. Creating a story about queer intimacy and joy that avoided the tragic stereotypes often seen in LGBTQ fiction was what he wanted. This representation mattered to viewers. Hudson Williams revealed during press appearances that he had received direct messages from professional athletes who are still closeted, telling him what the show meant to them. Unexpected crossover success with hockey fans followed. The Empty Netters podcast, hosted by former ice hockey players, covered the series enthusiastically, with media outlets citing it as an example of non-toxic masculinity within the sport. Here's an interesting demographic note. Justin Stockman from Bell Media admitted he didn't initially expect the audience to be so female-heavy given the nature of the books. "We were told that the target audience of these books is women, and I didn't know how to believe because it seems pretty queer," he said. But when we started seeing the internet reaction, the vast majority before this show had actually dropped was from women and the female fan base of the books. This speaks to something broader about romance as a genre. The romance novel industry is worth billions, driven primarily by women readers, yet often gets dismissed or treated as less legitimate than other genres. Heated Rivalry demonstrated that there's a massive underserved audience hungry for romance content that takes itself seriously and delivers emotional authenticity. According to GLAAD, more than half of LGBTQ Americans and 3 in 10 non-LGBTQ people, approximately 84 million Americans combined, say they are more likely to watch a TV show if at least one of the characters is LGBTQ. That's not a niche audience, that's a substantial portion of the viewing public. The season finale aired in late December. By that point, several year-end lists had already named Heated Rivalry among the best television shows of the year. These included Cosmopolitan, The New York Post, Refinery 29, The Seattle Times, and The Toronto Star. Harper's Bazaar went further, listing it among the best queer television series of all time, and they did this after only 2 episodes had aired. Just 2 weeks before the finale, Crave announced that the show had been renewed for a second season, with HBO Max returning as a distribution partner. The renewal included expanded distribution deals across multiple international markets via Warner Bros. Discovery, and Season 2 will adapt The Long Game, the 6th book in the Game Changers series, which serves as a sequel to Heated Rivalry. Tierney said 10 days after the renewal announcement that Season 2 would not premiere at the same time the following year, citing slower progress on episode scripts, and current estimates place the Season 2 premiere sometime later. So what made Heated Rivalry so popular? Let's break it down. First, there was a pre-existing organized fanbase that the creators actively engaged with rather than talked down to. Bell Media didn't just market to BookTok, they studied BookTok, understood what those readers wanted, and delivered it, which wasn't cynical pandering but respectful adaptation. Second, the show was genuinely good. The critical consensus wasn't manufactured. The chemistry between Williams and Story was undeniable, the writing was tight, and Tierney's direction brought emotional depth to material that could have been superficial, because the show took its romance seriously and trusted its audience to do the same. Third, timing worked in its favor. The accelerated premiere date put it in the holiday viewing window. The last-minute HBO Max acquisition gave it a massive US audience just as word of mouth was building. And 9 days is not a lot of time to market a show, which meant most of the promotion came organically from viewers rather than from corporate campaigns. Fourth, the show filled a gap. Despite increasing LGBTQ representation in media, there's still a shortage of queer stories that center romance and joy rather than trauma, and there's an even bigger shortage of such stories in the sports world, so Heated Rivalry offered something audiences wanted but couldn't find elsewhere. Fifth, it understood modern fan culture. The marketing strategy actively encouraged fan participation, where the show didn't try to control the narrative around it, but instead amplified what fans were already doing. When fan edits went viral, the official account made its own. When photos from the show became popular, they were released as phone wallpapers, and the show treated fans as collaborators, not consumers. Sixth, there's the simple fact that the show delivered on its promise. Week after week, it gave viewers what they came for. Compelling characters, emotional stakes, genuine chemistry, and yes, the romance and intimacy that readers of the books had been hoping to see translated to screen. Adaptation is difficult, especially when the source material has passionate fans, but Heated Rivalry threaded that needle. There's a broader lesson here about the changing entertainment landscape. Under $5 million. That's what Heated Rivalry cost to make, which is pocket change compared to major streaming productions that can cost hundreds of millions. Filming happened in just over a month. It came from Canada, not Hollywood. The actors were unknowns, and the director's previous work was in comedy, not romance or drama. By every traditional metric, this was not supposed to become a global phenomenon, but it had passionate creators who understood the material, a built-in audience that felt respected rather than exploited, and a story that people genuinely wanted to see told. The show's success arrived at a moment when Hollywood is facing unprecedented change, consolidation of companies, conservative pushback against diverse storytelling, questions about what content can succeed in the streaming era. Heated Rivalry stands as evidence that audiences aren't tired of diverse stories, they're tired of bad stories, of content that feels focus grouped rather than authentic, of shows that treat representation as a marketing checkbox rather than the foundation of meaningful narrative. As of early this year, the Reddit community for Heated Rivalry has over 64,000 members. The show's Wikipedia page has received over 84,000 views. People are making pilgrimages to filming locations in Ontario, and the books are experiencing a massive sales surge on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Audible. Author Rachel Reed, who lives in Nova Scotia, has seen her work reach an audience she likely never imagined when she first started writing about hockey players falling in love. Jacob Tierney and Brendan Brady will receive the Cultural Impact Award at the NYC LGBT Community Center's Gala, and the show is being discussed as a potential Emmy contender. But here's the thing, the most telling indicator of Heated Rivalry's impact isn't in the awards or the ratings or even the viral TikToks. It's in those direct messages Hudson Williams received from closeted professional athletes, in the fans who saw themselves reflected in Shane and Ilya's struggle to reconcile who they are with what the world expects them to be, and in the way the show sparked conversations about homophobia in sports, about queer joy versus queer tragedy, about what it means to adapt beloved source material with care and respect. Heated Rivalry succeeded because it was made with intention, marketed with intelligence, and executed with genuine care for both the source material and the people who loved it. The show understood that a small budget doesn't mean small ambitions, that niche audiences can drive mainstream success, and that sometimes the best strategy is simply to make something good, and trust that people will find it. In a media landscape obsessed with algorithms and demographics and safe bets, Heated Rivalry took risks and was rewarded for it. That's a lesson worth remembering as we wait for Season 2 and as we watch to see whether Hollywood learns anything from this small Canadian show that became one of the most talked about series of last year.